Chapter 663. Did he still not understand until now? He was no longer the insignificant Elvis who would appear in front of Gu Meng Meng with an injured leg, and she would not even question him about how he was injured. Now she cared about him. Even the slightest bit of abnormality could not be hidden from her eyes. Knowing that Elvis's life was not in danger, Gu Meng Meng felt much more at ease. Turning back, she saw Oraton scooping meat from the pot with his chopsticks. Oraton met Gu Meng Meng's gaze and felt a moment of awkwardness. His gaze turned away stiffly and his hands maintained the posture of scooping meat from the pot. His face was expressionless, but it gave off an awkward atmosphere. Gu Meng Meng could not help chuckling. Oraton, what about you? Are your injuries serious? Oraton cleared his throat and kept his chopsticks. He sat upright and still, looking at Gu Meng Meng. Maintaining his usual poker face, he said calmly, "To me, fighting with stray beasts is a common occurrence. There is a limit to how much they can hurt me. So my injuries are slightly lighter than Li's. It's not serious." Gu Meng Meng retracted her gaze and stared closely at her own knees. After hesitating for a long time, she slowly opened her mouth. "What about the others? Are they all right?" Leah knew that some things could not be hidden. After 2 days of rest, when they were ready to set off again, Gu Meng Meng would be able to tell how many people were missing from the group. Pulling Gu Meng Meng into his arms, he gently propped his chin on the top of her head. No tribe dares to say that they could escape unscathed from a battle with stray beasts. Even the previous messenger of the beast deity had some victories and some losses, but there was never a complete victory. So, Gu Meng Meng clenched her fists tightly and frowned. Her throat was tight, causing her voice to be dry and hoarse. How many died in the hands of the stray beasts? And how many died in my hands? Leah wanted to say that they all died in the hands of the stray beasts, but could such a lie fool Gu Meng Meng now? Leah held onto Gu Meng Meng's shoulders. "You could not control your emotions because you saw me in danger. So their deaths are not because of you but because of me. I will become stronger, strong enough to protect myself and my people. I won't let you lose control because of me again. So, you're not allowed to take these responsibilities on yourself. Do you hear me?" Gu Meng Meng's brows were still tightly furrowed. She looked straight into Li's eyes and said, "Tell me how much." Leah hugged Gu Meng Meng in his arms, his heart aching for her. He sighed and said, 72 people died in the battle, 90, beast pressure." Gu Meng Meng's body went limp and she fell into Li's arms. Most of these people had joined Saint Nazir during Sauter's beauty pageant. She had clearly promised to lead them to a good life, but before their good days came, they died in her hands. Leah caressed Gu Meng Meng's back and said, "Meng Meng, listen to me. In the beast world, the death of males was a very common thing. This was the survival of the fittest, the inevitable outcome of natural selection. It's the male's incompetence if they can't protect themselves. This is not your fault." This feeling of wanting him to be independent yet afraid of losing his reliance. Wasn't this the mentality of a parent sending their child to kindergarten for the first time? Pulling Li's hand, Gu Meng Meng looked at Elvis. His expression told her that he also had the same worries. What a tacit understanding. Chapter 665. Leah kissed Gu Meng Meng's forehead and Elvis tightened his grip on her hand. Gu Meng Meng heaved a sigh of relief and turned to look at Leah, asking, "Can you tell me now? What does using a fake to fight another fake mean?" Leah was stunned for half a second before he smiled and rubbed Gu Meng Meng's little head, saying, I really can't hide it from you." Gu Meng Meng did not say anything but her instincts told her that everything had something to do with coal. Leah rested his chin on Gu Meng Meng's little head and said tirelessly, "Do you remember what I told you on the day I exiled coal?" Gu Meng Meng nodded. Her memory was frighteningly good now, and it was not easy for her to forget. Leah chuckled and said casually as if he was narrating a story that had nothing to do with him, "During the few years I was exiled, I hated coal to the core. But the disparity in our abilities made me unable to take revenge. Getting close to Cole would only make me get played around by him again. If I don't want to become a clown that he can fool around with, the only way is to understand him and surpass him." Gu Meng Meng frowned. She did not really care much about the relationship between siblings, but they were still a family after all. She still could not understand why Cole schemed to harm Leah. Killing someone was just a matter of nodding one's head to the ground. With Cole's abilities, it was not difficult for him to kill Leah, but he did not do so. Instead, he used the cruelest methods to torture Lee's heart and made him suffer more than death. Leah suddenly chuckled and turned to look at Elvis, saying, so magical. Now when I mention Cole, I actually no longer feel angry and agitated to the point of wanting to kill someone. I even don't feel anything. Elvis chuckled and said, Congratulations, you finally broke free from Cole's torment. Hatred is no longer your pillar of support in life. Leah raised his brows and said, Yes, same to you. Gu Meng Meng held her forehead and looked coldly at the two fellows who did not speak human language. She said, Do I have to push you two to the wedding ceremony after the same? Leah was taken aback for a moment before looking at Gu Meng Meng ambiguously, saying, Are you lonely? Ha! You want to see that to relieve yourself? For a moment, Gu Meng Meng did not understand what Leah was up to. She instinctively moved backwards, but Leah leaned forward and pressed half of his body on top of Gu Meng Meng. His slender and bony hand locked her little hand above her head, while his other hand hooked her chin. He whispered in her ear, My first time is reserved for you. How can I give it to Elvis? No matter how much you want to see, at least, let me taste your sweetness first, Gu Meng Meng felt a gust of steam coming out from her ears, just like the white smoke spewing out from a steam train after the whistle sounded. She wriggled her body a couple of times and said with a flushed face, Who wants to see? Leah pulled away a little and looked at Gu Meng Meng slyly. He slid his finger across his lips and licked it with the tip of his tongue. His expression was seductive and seductive, just like poppies blooming in the night, making one hold their breath. You really don't want to see it? If you ask, maybe I'll be willing to cooperate? Chapter 666. Leah spread out his hands and shrugged. He smiled evilly. See, who is the one who is willing to do anything for you? Gu Meng Meng held her forehead. She felt that she was almost led into a ditch by Leah again. If Elvis had not spoken up in time to shatter this rotten image, she would have had a nosebleed from Lee's slutty look. She placed one hand on Lee's shoulder and the other on her forehead. She looked up and smiled coldly. Don't confuse me. Tell me the main point. Leah nodded nonchalantly. Actually, he was only fooling around because he was afraid that the story would be too heavy and would cause Gu Meng Meng to feel depressed. If it was possible, he did not want to talk about those unpleasant and beautiful things. He hoped that his Gu Meng Meng would only see a fairy tale-like world. However, he still couldn't do it with his current strength. Cole is the most talented among this generation in the Snow Fox clan. Be it in terms of intelligence or strength, he is the cream of the crop. It's a pity that his status is not enough to support his ambition. Big Brother and I are the stumbling blocks on his path to success. And, compared to Big Brother, he seems to hate me more. Gu Meng Meng frowned. Why? Didn't you say that you had a good relationship with Cole when you were young? Leah smiled bitterly. There was a hint of helplessness in his eyes. Yes, I thought I was good. I thought that second brother doted on me a lot. But, do you think that what you think is what you think? Gu Meng Meng was confused by Lee's words. So many think. After a while she said, Cole had an ulterior motive for treating you so well right from the start? Leah leaned back and leaned against the side of the tree hole. He looked up at the sky with a lazy expression. He said nonchalantly, A child blessed by the beast deity only appears once every few hundred years. And coincidentally, it's me. Gu Meng Meng blinked her eyes at Leah. Blessed by the beast deity? How did he bless you? Why can't I tell it all? Leah swayed his tail and said, You've seen quite a number of foxtails in Sauter. Did you notice any difference between them and me? Gu Meng Meng recalled carefully and stared at Lee's tail for a while. I didn't see anything. Leah squinted his eyes and leaned closer to Gu Meng Meng. Looking slightly sullen, he said, I'm not special in your eyes, am I? Gu Meng Meng was really wronged on this point. Firstly, she did not look carefully at other people's tails, and secondly, who the hell could tell the difference between every fox's tail? Leah kissed Gu Meng Meng's lips heavily, biting them twice as a punishment. He only released her when he tasted blood on his lips. He leaned back and continued, Other snow foxes will have some silver fur in their tails. When they walk in the snow, it will produce an effect similar to the refraction of sunlight. As for my tail, it was pure white, without a single stray hair. This is also the reason why I'm the only one who can use the art of deduction, even though it's been passed down from generation to generation among witch doctors. What was the difference between white and silver? Forgive Gu Meng Meng for not being very sensitive to colors. Unless the color difference was as clear as Elvis's and Lee's black and white, she really could not tell that there were a few strands of silver fur in the pure white tail. Clearing her throat, Gu Meng Meng asked, "The art of deduction you guys use, your tails to push?" Aside from the topic, come on everybody, repeat after me. Do you think that what you think is what you think? Is there anyone who is tongue-tied? Ha ha ha, that's right, it's time to say goodbye to everyone again. Chapter 667. Leah shook his head and said, "Only pure white snow foxes can sense the deity's decree and understand the hidden message in the deduction technique. As for the others, even if they learn the deduction technique, they can't decipher anything." Gu Meng Meng rolled her eyes at the mention of the beast deity. She was unhappy and mumbled, "He doesn't look very reliable, why do you still trust him so much?" Leah rubbed Gu Meng Meng's little head and said, "When I was being exiled by Cole and was struggling with hatred, I had also asked myself this question. Am I really a child blessed by the beast deity? Then why do I have to suffer like this? Until he guided me to meet you. Only then did I understand that he really cared for me. He didn't allow me to waste my good luck anywhere else, just to accumulate enough good luck to meet you and accompany you. Compared to you, those things in the past are not even worth mentioning." Elvis had also said something similar. Gu Meng Meng turned to look at Elvis with a deep gaze. The two males in her family always used the phrase, "not worth mentioning," to downplay the pain of the past. But why would she believe them? How many times had they risked their lives to exchange the phrase, "not worth mentioning"? Sighing softly, Gu Meng Meng held Lee's hand and looked at him gently. She said, "A child blessed by the beast deity received the protection and preferential treatment of the entire tribe, so Cole was jealous, right?" Leah nodded his head in approval and chuckled as if it was someone else's story. He said, "Yes, if he wanted to be the tribe leader, he could have just killed my eldest brother. But even if he killed me, he couldn't replace me. On the day I was exiled, I asked him why he wanted to harm me and he said, 'Because you are the ninth highness. Can't be replaced, but can be destroyed.' That's probably what he meant." Gu Meng Meng's heart ached for Leah. What could be more painful than being betrayed and framed by someone whom she had relied on wholeheartedly? But Leah was smiling casually. He kissed Gu Meng Meng's little face and said, "I was afraid that you would be like this, so I didn't want to tell you. It's all in the past, I don't care about it anymore." Gu Meng Meng pursed her lips and did not say a word. Don't care about it? If he had really forgotten about it, let it go, and let it go, why would he have created Saint Nazir? He even dared to plot against the messenger of the beast deity. As a witch doctor, he knew better than anyone else that plotting against the messenger of the beast deity was a great disrespect to the beast deity, and would result in torture and punishment. But even so, he still did it without hesitation. How was this a sign that he had already let it go? Leah pinched Gu Meng Meng's little face and said, "I can't continue telling my story if you look at me with such a worried expression." Gu Meng Meng turned around and lay in Lee's arms. She leaned her back against his chest and rested her head on his shoulder. She gently closed her eyes and said, "I won't look at you. You can speak." Leah kissed her hair and continued, "If I want to win Cole, I must first learn to think from his point of view. So I started to imitate his actions and guess his thoughts. Slowly, I started to forget how the original Leah was like. My actions were Cole's way of thinking. Strictly speaking, the current me is just a fake of Cole, an imitation." Gu Meng Meng chuckled and said, "So when I was tricked by Cole to solder previously, you said you were worried that I would fall in love with Cole, right?" Aside from the topic, the post "My wife smells so good" from a friend on Twitter was still the same. PK in the middle was still popular. In her previous life, 7 years of sincerity had been wasted and she had died tragically. In this life, she had transformed into a gentle and lovely lady, a graceful and graceful lady. Although Mr. Chi had countless women around him, he had always left his pillow for her, his one and only lover, Su Wei. Someone asked her, what did she like about him? Answer: he dotes on me and loves me for a very long time. In order to get him, she tortured him in all sorts of ways. In order to get her, He recruited new men in bed. Snippet: Miss Sue was curled up on the sofa reading a book when a certain man immediately snatched it over and said in all seriousness, "Reading books is useless. Only by making babies with me can we make the country strong." She glanced at him and said, "Are you very bored?" Chapter 668. Leah squinted his eyes and adjusted to the sunlight that scattered on his face. He looked sideways at Gu Meng Meng and touched her left ear gently with his fingers. He chuckled and said, "You had destroyed all my confidence at that time. And, from some aspects, Cole was indeed more outstanding than me. After all, I had always been imitating him. How could I walk in front of him by stepping on other people's footprints?" Her two males were extremely confident in other aspects, but they were as humble as dust when it came to relationships. Gu Meng Meng felt helpless and asked Leah, "Are you not afraid now?" Leah pulled Gu Meng Meng. Gu Meng Meng did not have much energy and did not want to resist, so she just let him pull her onto his chest like a rag doll and lay on top of him. Leah kissed Gu Meng Meng's earlobe lightly and said with a huff, "Do you know why I insisted on making Elvis your first partner?" Gu Meng Meng thought for a while and replied, "You were afraid that I would not accept Elvis after mating with me and you would not be able to fulfill your promise?" Leah shook his head and said, "You are not heartless towards Elvis. Moreover, with your soft-hearted and kind personality, if I had plotted it, the time you accepted him after we mated would be shorter than the time you accepted me." Gu Meng Meng thought about it and felt that it was true. She nodded her head in agreement and then asked, "Why is that?" Lee's fingers caressed the snow fox mark on her ear gently and his gaze was misty as he said, "Because I know how selfish I am." Ha! Gu Meng Meng did not understand what Leah meant. Leah smiled bitterly and said, "If I was the first partner, even if I knew I could not protect you alone, I would rather drag you to death with me than to allow you to have a second male. But Elvis is different. He can give up everything for you and he can also defeat everything. Even if he had to grind his heart into pieces inch by inch, as long as you are happy, he would not say a word. It is the safest and most beneficial for you to have such a person as your first partner. The two of you must mate first so that he can suppress me in terms of strength. Only then can I be at your side with peace of mind. Because, when I can't control myself and go crazy from jealousy, there must be someone who can protect you from my madness." Leah made himself sound so evil, but Gu Meng Meng just laughed out loud. She poked Lee's brows and said, "But you're so selfish, yet you gave up your position as the first partner just to be my insurance. So, I believe that no matter if it's you or Elvis, neither of you will hurt me." Leah allowed Gu Meng Meng's little hand to poke his forehead. Looking at her gentle and calm eyes, the corners of his lips curved upwards unknowingly. "Of course we won't hurt you, but we will hurt those males who try to get close to you." Gu Meng Meng chuckled and declined to comment. In her life, Leah and Elvis were enough. After the incident with Snake, she clearly knew that if she didn't want others to get the wrong information, she shouldn't show any kindness from the start. Turning a blind eye is sometimes a kind of mercy. Chapter 669. Yeah, I understand. Gu Meng Meng chuckled. Lee's words meant that she did not need to worry about Cole's schemes. He and Elvis would use all means to prevent Cole from getting close to her. Actually, this was probably protection. How awkward. Did he have to make it sound so sour? "You really understand?" Leah asked doubtfully. "What do you intend to do with Burke?" Gu Meng Meng sighed. "Kanwa seems to value this master quite a lot. Even Huda and Jiaoyu are very protective of him. I am afraid that my attitude is too tough and will make the children sad. The little wolves cannot be hurt anymore." Leah narrowed his eyes, emitting a dangerous aura. "So you intend to let him use the little wolf cubs as a cover to wander around you?" Thinking about it, it was quite annoying. Gu Meng Meng glanced at Elvis, who was lying on the ground, not daring to move, and said in a bad mood, "Isn't it all because of some people? Our son has already asked for guidance. Why are you acting so tsundra and still saying why?" Tisk. Elvis wanted to explain, but after thinking about it, he swallowed it back. Leah looked at Elvis's bitter expression and could not help but laugh. With a gloating look he said, "Some people just want to grind down Kanwa's arrogance and make Kanwa beg him a few more times, so that the little wolf pups can clearly see who is the boss in the family. But who would have thought that Kanwa would become Burke's disciple? Great, not only did he not manage to control his son, he even brought back a potential love rival. Heh, isn't this a double loss?" Elvis did not dare to rebuke Gu Meng Meng, but that did not mean he would allow Leah to do whatever he wanted, so he said with a dark face, I heard that you have been teaching Jiaoyu for a long time. From today's situation, it seems to be quite effective. Leah almost bit his tongue. Thinking of Jiaoyu's behavior today, it really made one's teeth itch with hatred, but one could not do anything to him. Turning to look at Gu Meng Meng, he pinched her little nose in a punitive manner. It's all because you supported them that they became so arrogant and out of control. I'm afraid no one will be able to control them in the future. Thinking of her own sons, Gu Mingming's eyes shone with the radiance of motherly love. She rested her face on Li's chest and said, the pupil surpasses the master. Each generation is stronger than the previous one. The sunlight warmed her body and she was a little tired after a whole morning. She laid on her stomach and fell asleep. When she opened her eyes again, she was sleeping in Elvis's arms. Elvis sat boldly in the tree hole, as if it was not a tree hole, but a supreme throne. He was like the ruler of the night, looking down from above, insufferably arrogant. Gu Meng Meng nestled in his arms, looking especially petite and weak, giving off the vibe of King Zhou of Shang and his demon concubine Daji. There were 19 bonfires in front of them, with the biggest one on Gu Mingming's left and right. Leah and Oriton were working together to skewer the meat and place them on the clean leaves. Ian was on a branch above Gu Mingming's head, half sitting and half lying, looking a little unruly and carefree like a Lord Grim lying on the battlefield. But his face was still sickly, causing him to lack some of the aura and charm of a general. He looked more like a sickly crown prince who followed the army into battle, the kind that looked good but did not have to go to battle. Chapter 670. Elvis's 2 simple words successfully attracted everyone's attention. Instantly, other than the crackling sounds of the firewood, everyone was staring at Gu Meng Meng in silence, causing her to feel uneasy for no reason. It was just a nap. Was there a need for everyone in the tribe to watch? All right, let's eat. Elvis carried Gu Meng Meng and stood up, walking to the side of the bonfire before sitting down. Gu Meng Meng was a little worried. Your body has not recovered yet. Is it all right to carry me like this? Elvis raised his eyebrows, chuckling. It's just a small injury. After carrying you for an afternoon, I'm almost fully recovered. Gu Meng Meng rebuked. What's the use of carrying me? I'm not a medicine. Elvis played with Gu Mingming's hair, bringing it to his nose for a sniff, chuckling. You're my life-saving elixir, there's nothing more effective than you. Gu Meng Meng did not reply. If not for the fact that there was no internet here, she would have suspected that Elvis had secretly read some weird web novel while she was asleep. She glanced at the surrounding bonfires, including her own. There were a total of 19. Every family had one bonfire, which meant that there were no female casualties in this battle. That's right, even if all the males in the family died, there were still unmated males who would automatically take over to protect the females. Unless all the males in the tribe died, the females would definitely be well protected. Gu Meng Meng inherited Elvis's eyesight. She could see extremely clearly in the firelight. Each and every familiar face, so calm that not a single trace of sadness could be seen. They were still instructing the males to eat this and that, do this and that. Gu Meng Meng felt a little weird. She had prepared herself to see how sad the females were tonight, before being tortured by guilt till they were covered in cuts and bruises, unable to go any further. She knew that it would definitely be very painful, but she also knew that it was a reasonable torture for her to endure. But she did not expect that these females did not even have the slightest bit of sadness, as if the person who died was a stranger they had never seen before, and not the partners who risked their lives for them and took good care of them. To a certain extent, this lessened Gu Mengming's guilt, but she felt another kind of sadness that she could not describe. Sandy's bonfire was the closest to Gu Mengming's, on the right side of the tree hole. Sandy sat with his back facing Gu Meng Meng, not turning his head at all. Hada and his brothers did not prepare to roast meat in Gu Mengming's fire pit. Instead, they sat beside Sandy's fire pit. Burke sat beside Kanwu. His gaze pierced through the flames and landed on Gu Meng Meng with a scorching heat, as if he could not control his longing for her. Leah held onto the roasted meat branch and snapped it into 2. He laughed sinisterly. That pair of eyes really makes me uncomfortable. I really want to dig them out. Gu Meng Meng waved her hands and sighed. Forget it, the children know that you don't like him and have already brought him to Sandy's place for a free meal. Don't mind him. If he wants to watch, let him watch. Leah took 2 deep breaths, then walked to Gu Mingming's side and used his body to block Burke's line of sight. With a darkened face, he looked at Burke with a threatening gaze. How can I do that? What if I spoil it? Gu Mengmeng did not know whether to laugh or cry. She patted Elvis's shoulder, signaling him to turn around. Chapter 671. The oily barbecued meat gave off a fragrant aroma that whetted one's appetite. Li's culinary skills were well known. Even though his theoretical knowledge came from Gu Mengmeng, the food he made was much better than Gu Mengmeng's culinary skills. This was also the reason why Oratin never hit Li's hands when he fought with him. That pair of hands was related to his meals and must not be careless. Great messenger! A faint voice called out from above and Gu Mengmeng's scalp went numb. Could this fellow not see that her two males were guarding against him as if he was a thief? Was he here to seek death? Gu Mengmeng turned her head and wanted to pretend that she did not hear anything so that Burke would back off and leave after being snubbed. However, Burke was not as tactful as Gu Mengmeng thought he would be. Not only did he not leave, he even squatted down on one knee and pushed Kanwu towards Gu Mengmeng, saying, Kanwu was injured during training today. Although it's not serious, it's better for the witch doctor to treat him. Upon hearing Kanwu's name, Gu Mengmeng turned her head abruptly. Only then did she realize that one of Kanwu's claws was flipped outwards. There were several bruises on his body as well as dozens of wounds of various sizes. There was a large piece of skin at the corner of his mouth that was dripping with blood. His eyes were lowered and he did not dare to look at Gu Mengmeng. He looked like a child who had returned home with 0 marks for his parents to sign. Gu Mengmeng's heart twitched violently. She cupped Kanwu's little face and asked with heartache, Who beat you up to this state? Kanwu lowered his head and replied in a small voice. I went hunting and met a tiger, but I couldn't beat it. Gu Mengmeng gritted her teeth and raised her hand to give Kanwu a slap. But she could not bear to do it. So she looked up and glared at Burke angrily. Kanwu acknowledged you as his master. Is this how you take care of your disciple? Burke did not explain and just looked at Gu Mengmeng quietly, allowing her to vent her anger on him. Kanwu tugged at Gu Mengmeng's sleeves and explained. Mummy, don't scold Master Burke. Master Burke originally wanted me to hunt rabbits. I was too greedy and arrogant, so I secretly ran far into the tiger's territory. If not for Master Burke's timely rescue, I might not have been able to return today. Gu Mengmeng also knew that it was wrong to blame Burke, but her son was already so badly injured. She could not bear to even say a few harsh words to him, let alone hit him. Clenching her fists, Gu Mengmeng said coldly, Thank you for saving my son once again, but I feel that you are not suitable to be his master. Let his father teach him martial arts in the future. Borg still didn't say anything. He just stood there quietly. But Kanwu lifted his little face and looked at Gu Mengmeng seriously with his brows furrowed. Mummy, I will only acknowledge the master I choose myself. Elvis retracted his arm and pulled Gu Mengmeng back into his arms. He looked at Kanwu with disdain and said, If he falls into my hands, I will definitely not save him today. If you can't even defeat a mere wild beast, what face do you have to live on? Gu Mengmeng turned her head and glared at him. Elvis! Chapter 672. Hooking Gu Mengmeng's chin, Elvis smiled evilly in the dark night. He looked deeply at Gu Mengmeng and said, As long as you are happy, it is nothing to raise a little wolf cub. But when he becomes food for the enemy in the future, you are not allowed to be sad or cry. Gu Mengmeng pursed her lips. It was not that she did not understand the principle of survival of the fittest. There were too many related inheritances in Snake's memories. And wasn't this attack by the stray beasts a living example? Even a baby eagle could not learn to fly if it was raised in a hen's nest. She understood the principle, but Kanwu was her biological son. She could not help but feel heartache for him. Kanwu completely ignored Elvis, completely disregarding his words as wind blowing past his ears, dispersing as soon as it blew past him. With his little hands on Gu Mengmeng's thighs, Kanwu's azure blue eyes reflected the light from the bonfire. With a determination that did not match his age, he frowned slightly and looked into Gu Mengmeng's eyes. Mummy, don't worry. I am not in pain, really not in pain. As a born wolf, this little injury is nothing. Gu Mengmeng was stunned for a moment before she smiled. Kanwu, this fellow. Although he said that he hated Elvis and went against him at every turn, in actual fact, father's influence was still deeply rooted in his heart. That frowning little brows, that pretended to be mature in his eyes, and that phrase as a born wolf. If one looked closely, it was not difficult to notice that Kanwu was imitating Elvis in many details. Patting Kanwu's little head, Gu Mengmeng nodded gently. My son, you are so brave. Kanwu was stunned. He thought Mummy would be angry. He had challenged the authority of the family and disobeyed Mummy's arrangements. And if he had not run into the battlefield, Mummy would not have chased him into the battlefield to find him. That way, Mummy would not have been agitated to the point of releasing her beast pressure. Till now, she was so weak that she could not even sit properly. But Mummy did not blame him. Not a single word. But before Mummy woke up, he was already prepared to be hung on a tree to die or chased out of the tribe. Mummy! Kanwu felt a lump in his throat as he called out in a childish voice. Gu Mengmeng opened her arms and hugged Kanwu. Patting his back gently, she said, My son has grown up. He is no longer the little wolf cub who only knows how to hide behind Mummy's back for help after being bullied by Daddy. In the future, Mummy can also rely on you to protect me? My little hero. Kanwu raised his eyes. His azure blue eyes were filled with tears. He nodded firmly and said, I will always protect my mother. Gu Mengmeng cupped Kanwu's little head and kissed him on the forehead. All right, I look forward to it. Kanwu wanted to say something more, but Leah had already grabbed the back of his neck and pulled him out of Gu Mengmeng's arms. Chapter 673. Hada carried Qixuan to Gu Mengmeng and asked, Mummy, can we eat with you? Gu Mengmeng used her elbow to poke Elvis and said softly, The children are here, stop fooling around. Elvis was displeased and started to dislike these wolf pups even more. With them around, he could not even get close to them. Annoying, he should not have placed them in Gu Mengmeng's stomach in the first place. How good would it be to just throw them on the ground? Seeing Elvis turn his face away and not say a word, Gu Mengmeng then replied Hada, Of course you can, you are my children and should eat with me. Hada asked again, Then can Master Burke join too? Gu Mengmeng was in a difficult position. This type of campfire party at the tribal level was shared by the entire family. Oriton could stay here because he claimed to be Gu Mengmeng's guardian beast, while Ian did not even want to come down to eat from the treetop, so he did not count. It was not a problem for Hada and his brothers to come back to eat, but Burke, Jiaoyu walked to Hada's side and squatted down. He hugged his knees with both hands and looked at Gu Mengmeng with his chubby little face. He did not say a word and Gu Mengmeng's heart melted just from looking at him. And with his posture, not to mention Gu Mengmeng, even Elvis could not resist it. This damn angle and expression was too similar to when Gu Mengmeng had just arrived at St. Nazaire. Jiaoyu tilted his head and said with a troubled expression, We originally wanted to go to mother-in-law's house for a free meal and Uncle Colin had already agreed. But mother-in-law's eyes were red and tears were dripping down. Looking at her. We don't even have the mood to eat anymore. Gu Mengmeng turned around and saw Sandy stiffening. She had obviously heard Jiaoyu's words and wanted to leave in a hurry, but she stumbled and fell into Colin's arms. Sandy, what's wrong? Gu Mengmeng could not move freely now and could only call out to Sandy. Sandy refused to turn back and just buried her face in Colin's arms, saying, I'm fine, it's just that I did not sleep well these 2 days so my eyes are a little red. I will go back first. Gu Mengmeng knew that something must have happened to Sandy. Didn't Sandy pounce on me the last time she saw me? Even if Colin was not as close to her as before after he failed to rescue her with Elvis and the rest, she had never not taken a glance at her. How can you say you're fine with such a nasal voice? Gu Mengmeng frowned and glared at Colin. Come here, let me take a look. Colin patted Sandy's back lightly and carried her to Gu Mengmeng's side. Now that Colin was no longer the messenger's guard, he did not have the right to share food beside Gu Mengmeng's campfire. Hence, after putting Sandy down, he returned to his own campfire and watched Sandy and Gu Mengmeng's back silently. Gu Mengmeng pulled Sandy's little hand that was covering her face and pulled it downwards. Chapter 674. Sandy looked up and followed Gu Mengmeng's gaze. She was stunned for a moment before lowering her head with a bitter smile. I forgot that you know how to count. Nina had so many partners at the start of spring. You could tell how many were missing with just one glance. I have so few partners at home. How could I hide it from your eyes? Gu Meng Meng hugged Sandy gently and bit her lower lip, unable to say a word. Sandy shook her head and forced a smile. You don't have to apologize, the three of them died because they were protecting me, it's not your fault. If you want to cry, just cry. Why are you acting tough in front of me? Gu Mingming's heart ached terribly. She felt sorry for this silly girl who was still trying to excuse her even after her partners had died. Sandy bit her lower lip and shook her head. She sniffled before saying, It's very normal for males to die in battle. I'm not sad at all. Sandy's nasal voice was so thick that even a long sentence would affect her breathing. Gu Meng Meng frowned and said in a low voice, Are you afraid that I will blame myself, so you kept turning your back to me, not daring to let me know that you are sad? I will blame myself even more if you force yourself to smile like this. Silly girl, I would rather you scold me or fight me. Sandy, who had been exposed, could no longer keep up her act. Tears streamed down her cheeks as she cried, I can't beat you, Gu Meng Meng said. I will stand still and let you hit me. Sandy cried while saying, I can't bear to hit you. Sob, sob, sob. When Leah returned, he saw Sandy hugging Gu Meng Meng and crying like a dog. He casually threw Kanwu aside and snatched Gu Meng Meng from Sandy's arms. He looked at Elvis with displeasure. Tisk, you've been hugged so badly, aren't you going to do something about it? Elvis sighed helplessly and pointed at Sandy. He looked at Leah and asked, Do you think I can snatch her away? Leah hugged Gu Meng Meng in his arms for a long time before tidying her clothes. Then he smiled at Sandy and said, If only you were a male, then I could tear you apart. Sandy was speechless. Barp. Sandy was so shocked by Lee's smile that she hiccuped. She was so stunned that she even forgot to cry. Gu Meng Meng patted Lee's chest and said, Don't be like this, Sandy is already upset enough. Leah covered Gu Meng Meng's little hand and pressed it against his chest. He looked straight into Gu Meng Meng's eyes with his long and affectionate eyes and said, You are mine, how can I let others hug you so casually? Gu Meng Meng sighed. Leah and Elvis's jealousy had always been strong, but the difference in their targets was very obvious. In Elvis's eyes, the number one rivals in love were the four little ones represented by Kanwu. And Lee's number one love rival was Sandy. Gu Meng Meng shrugged helplessly. Regardless of whether it was the four little ones or Sandy, they clearly could not develop any strange feelings for her. She also did not know why these two fellows had to compete with them. Seeing how Leah was about to explode, Gu Meng Meng wrapped her arms around his neck and kissed him on the cheek. Then she smiled and said, What about you, when will the roasted meat be ready? This time, Leah was very pleased with the way he pacified him. He narrowed his eyes and passed Gu Meng Meng back into Elvis's arms. Exchanging a look with Elvis, he then said in a serious tone, Guard against fire, thieves and best friends, understand? Elvis frowned and looked at Sandy warily. Then he nodded at Leah. Chapter 675. Gu Mengming's appearance calmed the anxious hearts of these people. As long as the messenger of the beast deity was safe, the other sacrifices were all honorable. Gu Meng Meng and Elvis belonged to the powerful upper echelons. Although they were the most seriously injured, they recovered the fastest. The other second-level and third-level orcs were not so lucky. It was not easy for them to recover from the external injuries caused by the stray beasts and the internal injuries caused by Gu Mengming's uncontrollable pressure. Leah simply arranged for them to recuperate on the spot and continue their journey after most of them had recovered. These few days, Burke would bring Kanwu back to eat with everyone at dinner time. Kanwu suffered new and old injuries every day. He was either lame or had a swollen face. Gu Mengming's heart ached to see him like this, but she did not say anything to him to give up. Seeing Kanwu report to her every night that he had become much stronger after entering the heavenly realm, Gu Meng Meng could do nothing else other than placing pieces of meat into her son's bowl. This morning, the sun was shining brightly. Gu Meng Meng sat in the tree hole that Leah had dug for her, stroking Lee's large tail. Leah lay on Gu Meng Meng's knees, closing his eyes in contentment. Elvis leaned against the tree trunk, his gaze lingering on Gu Meng Meng. It was as gentle as the mottled sunlight, warm and dense. It's been 7 days and there's actually no next step. Gu Meng Meng whispered. Lee's fox ears twitched on the top of his head. His lips curved into a smile. Yeah, It's really not Cole's style. Elvis stretched out his hand and passed a cup of warm water to Gu Meng Meng. Then, he said, he mobilized so many people just to send Burke right under our noses? Isn't he afraid that we will just kill him and end things once and for all? Leah nudged Gu Meng Meng's cup of water, indicating that she had drunk too little and should drink more. Seeing that her lips were moistened by the water, his gaze also became gentler. Gu Meng Meng must find Cole if she wants to save Qi Xian. So he purposely left his scent on Cole so that we can use Cole as a bargaining chip to lure him out and not kill him easily. Gu Meng Meng sighed and said, sometimes, I really don't understand why Cole would go through so much trouble to do this. Kill you? Kill me? Or kill Elvis? No matter which one it is, Borg alone can't do it. Leah tapped Gu Meng Meng's little face with his finger and said, Cole's character has always been sinister. What he seeks is not to kill but to torture. Take me for example. Back then I was as young as an ant. If he wanted to kill me, he could have done it without anyone noticing. But he didn't want me to die. He wanted me to live and watch him take away everything that belonged to me. He wanted me to fall from the high and mighty Ninth Highness into the mud. He enjoyed the humiliation and inner torment of being stepped on by him, even though I struggled with all my might. Gu Meng Meng face-bombed. So Cole is a psychopath. Leah chuckled and nodded. Yeah, you can say that. If torturing people is his hobby, then Meng Meng should be safe. Elvis said faintly, if the person he wants to torture is you or me, then nothing is more lethal than snatching Meng Meng away. If the person he wants to torture is Meng Meng, then he must first let Meng Meng live. Out of topic. Hello, everyone. Chapter 676. Gu Meng Meng followed Elvis's train of thought and said, could it be that Cole wants Burke to kidnap me? Leah didn't seem to mind too much as he looked up at Gu Meng Meng and said, that might not be the case. To you, Burke is equivalent to those little toys that Cole brought back from outside the tribe. They are just a tool to express his goodwill. Elvis's gaze drifted into the distance and he said, or perhaps, he will repeat his old tricks. Gu Meng Meng was taken aback for half a second before she sat up abruptly and said, you mean, to kidnap Kanwu and the rest to threaten me? Leah patted Gu Meng Meng's shoulder lightly to indicate for her to relax and said, if that is the case, Burke would not be so close to Kanwu and the rest. Cole is obviously using Burke as bait. If we are so guarded against him, how would he have the chance to strike? Gu Meng Meng was a little worried. The children had been too close to Burke recently. If Burke wanted to kidnap them, the chances of him succeeding were very high. Elvis placed his large hand on Gu Meng Meng's head and his gaze was deep and calm as he said, don't worry, Ian and his men are watching over you. I will not let those few wolf cubs drag you into danger again. Gu Meng Meng then felt a little more at ease and leaned back against the tree hole and said, Kanwu and the rest have been too close to Burke recently, I just don't feel at ease. Why don't you teach our sons personally? You are so strong. You will definitely teach better than Burke. Elvis squatted down on one knee and held Gu Meng Meng's little hand to kiss her forehead and asked, are you sure you want me to go? Gu Meng Meng looked at Elvis in confusion and asked, is there a problem? Elvis chuckled and said, nothing, I am just afraid you will not be able to bear it. Gu Meng Meng had a bad premonition and she tugged at Elvis's arm and asked, tell me first, if I hand my sons over to you to train, how will you train him? Elvis thought about it and said, Qi Xian is still unconscious and probably doesn't need to train. I will leave him at home temporarily as a stuffed toy for you to play with. Gu Meng Meng felt that his words sounded strange but she could not pinpoint what was strange about it. However, Qi Xian was indeed unable to train in his current state. Any random rabbit could bite him to death. Elvis continued, Jiaoyu and Leah are on the same path. Their attacks are secondary and strategies are their main focus. Just leave that lad to Leah. Thinking of Jiaoyu, Leah face-bombed and said, I've always been the one treating people, but this fellow is a pain in the neck, unmoved by force or persuasion. You blinked your eyes and tried to act cute when you were forced into a corner. You also know that I have no resistance against those eyes. Once, I used an animal skin to cover his eyes. And guess what happened next? Gu Meng Meng burst out laughing because she was there too. Jiaoyu used his little claws to peel off half of his blindfold. Biting his finger, he looked at Leah and asked, Daddy Leah, are we going to play Polly today? Li's hair stood on end because from Jiaoyu's tone to his expression, he had perfectly copied Gu Mengming's reaction on the spot. If Gu Mengming had really said those words, Leah would have pounced on her without a second word and tied her up before stripping her naked. But it just had to be a fake, and he was Gu Mengming's biological son. I won't really throw them into the wild wolves. Moreover, even if I am willing to teach them, that kid Kanwu might not be willing to learn from me. Although Borg's methods were a little gentler, it was still safe. Don't worry, it'll be fine. Elvis could only think of this point. Dinner time was the happiest and most anticipated time for him, but he never thought that he would have the opportunity to get closer to her. It was like a dream. Gu Mengming watched as Burke's expression kept changing, almost as fast as the changing faces of Sichuan operas. She cleared her throat and asked, "Is it inconvenient?" Chapter 679. Realizing that he had answered too quickly, Burke cleared his throat and lowered his head, not daring to look into Gu Mengming's eyes. A tinge of pink crept up his ears as he added, "I was worried that you would feel heartache if you saw them." Gu Mengming chuckled and said, "Children have to grow up eventually. I am willing to do anything for them, but I can't help them grow up." Gu Mengming tilted her head and smiled. Burke only saw it from the corner of his eye, and felt as though countless flowers had bloomed in his heart. The entire world seemed to have faded away, and only that faint smiling face was left in his eyes. Burke was later brought away by the three little ones. He himself staggered as though his soul had flown away. Leah hugged Gu Mengming jealously in his arms and rested his chin on the top of her head. Looking at Burke walking away, he said unhappily, "How long has it been since you spoke to me so gently?" This Burke. Tiske, just kill him." Gu Mengming pinched Leah and said, "He is just a pawn being used. He is already pitiful enough to be embroiled in the dispute between us and Cole. Moreover, he is Kanwa's master after all." Humph. Leah snorted heavily through his nose. He reached out to carry Gu Mengming, but Elvis beat him to it. Seeing Gu Mengming being carried in Elvis's arms, Leah felt irritated for no reason. He bared his teeth at Elvis, revealing an angry and aggressive expression. Gu Mengming was taken aback. Elvis had always been the one carrying her around at home. Other than the few days when Elvis was seriously injured and Leah acted as her legs, Elvis had always been her exclusive driver. Leah had never had any objections, so why today? Elvis's expression was stern and his face was extremely black. He pinched Lee's head with his large hand and frowned with anger. "Are you trying to challenge my authority as the first partner?" Leah was stunned. He looked into Elvis's eyes and his expression froze. After a long while, he finally composed himself and used his hand to brush Elvis's wrist away. Then he rubbed his temples and said, "Sorry, I was wrong." Elvis also kept the anger and murderous intent off his face. He did not say a word and just carried Gu Mengming away. Meanwhile, Leah did not chase after them. After walking for a distance, Gu Mengming saw that Elvis still did not look too good, so she asked, "Are you still angry?" Elvis shook his head. "I'm not angry. I'm just a little worried. Lee's condition is not normal." Gu Mengming recalled Lee's ferocious expression and nodded. Maybe Cole's matter had annoyed him too much and he was under a lot of pressure, so he could not control his emotions. "Don't take it to heart." Elvis sighed and said, "I hope so. But Xiao Meng, there's something you need to know." Gu Mengming asked with a single syllable. Elvis said, "In a family, the first partner's authority is absolute. This was the only way to provide the best living environment for the females. Although we only have 2 males in our family, we cannot break the rules. I can accept your preference for Leah, but I will never allow him to challenge the authority of the first partner. If there is a next time, I won't forgive him so easily." Actually, Gu Mengming did not really understand what family authority was. They were a family. Wasn't it better to talk things through? Chapter 680. Gu Mengming cupped Elvis's face with both hands and kissed his chin. With a gentle gaze she said, "It's not that serious, don't mind it too much." Elvis straightened Gu Mengming's body and said, If the authority of the first partner is challenged, the other family members will become restless and everyone will want to replace her. In this way, the scheming within the family will become more and more intense, followed by deception, bewitchment, and even coercion towards females. This kind of thing is a great threat to the family, the tribe, and even the entire beast world. Gu Mengmeng was taken aback. She had never thought that the matter would be so serious. But Elvis's worries were not groundless. She did not know what the scheming between males would be like, but she had at least watched Empresses in the Palace and Desire for the Golden Branch. Women could do anything for the position of Empress. Based on the blind love and stubbornness of males towards females in the beast world, they would only be crazier than the women in those television dramas. If all the males in a family were thinking of how to overthrow the first partner and replace her, then the family would fall apart sooner or later. If all the families in a tribe were like that, then the tribe would disappear in the torrent of time without the need for external enemies. If the entire beast world was filled with such families, what kind of a Jura scene would that be? If she was not the messenger of the beast deity, perhaps such a situation would not matter. But she was the messenger of the beast deity who was the center of attention. If there was a situation where other partners challenged the first partner in her family, what kind of crazy butterfly effect would be created? Just look at how the 16 valued females, the first beauty of the tribe, imitated her to learn how to be gentle, kind, and interact with others. Gu Mengmeng nodded and said, "I know, I will talk to Leah and ask him not to do such things in the future." Elvis kissed Gu Mengmeng's little face and said in a hoarse voice, "I don't want to do anything that will make you sad. Unless it is for your safety." Gu Mengmeng leaned into Elvis's arms, her little face leaning against his chest. She listened to his heartbeat beating against her heart, finally reaching the same frequency. Chuckling, Gu Mengmeng rubbed against him and said, "I know you love me, and I also know Leah won't hurt me." "Don't worry, that won't happen." Elvis sighed softly. "I hope so." That night, Gu Mengmeng slept in the tree hole. Elvis held her little hand tightly and sat sideways at the edge of the tree hole. He used his chest as her pillow and his tail as her blanket. He secretly released a small amount of beast pressure to chase away all the mosquitoes nearby so that she could sleep more peacefully. That night, Leah did not return. No one knew where he had gone. Chapter 681. In the dense forest, the trees were so tall that the tops could not be seen. The layers of tree crowns were like overlapping green clouds, blocking out most of the sunlight. Several light beams shone through the gaps between the leaves, adding a mystical aura to the forest, as if there would be elves peeking out from behind the trees at any time, flapping their cicada-like wings and shuttling between the spots of light. Burke carried Gu Mengmeng on his shoulder, then climbed up a tree fork in his human form. Gu Mengmeng estimated that the tree was about 3 meters tall, about 1.5 stories high. Sitting there, she could clearly see the situation under the tree, but unless it was a deliberate attack, the battle below would not affect Gu Mengmeng. Burke sat beside Gu Mengmeng, his expression a little uneasy. His eyes were fixed on the 3 little ones who were already hiding under the tree, but he could not help but sneak a few glances at Gu Mengmeng's reaction. It was Gu Mengmeng's first time participating in the children's hunt. Although she was just a VIP spectator, it did not stop Gu Mengmeng's heart from surging with excitement. It was the same feeling as watching a child participate in a cultural performance. She wanted to shake the stranger beside her and say, "Look, the most handsome boy on stage is my son." Everything was ready. After the 3 little ones exchanged glances, Jiaoyu ran into the depths of the forest alone. Gu Mengmeng frowned, worry written all over her face. Her son was not even a year old. It was always worrying for him to run into such a dangerous place alone. Burke had been observing Gu Mengmeng's reaction. Seeing her frown, he understood her worry and wanted to pat her shoulder, but was afraid that he would be too presumptuous, so he lowered his voice and said, "Don't worry, Jiaoyu is very smart, he will be fine." Well, that was not wrong. She understood the logic, but that did not stop her from worrying. Gu Mengmeng's eyes alternated between Kanwu and Huda. She realized that her 2 sons' expressions were focused and calm. They were confident in their strategy, and even more confident in their brothers. Gu Mengmeng knew that she had to learn to trust her children. Even if they were not even a year old, they would still be at the age of being pushed in a baby carriage and nibbling on a pacifier in the modern world. But here, they were youths who had already turned into half-beasts. Because of her protective nature, she had already received training later than other children. If she continued to protect her children under her wings like an old hen, how would they survive in the future? Pursing her thin lips into a straight line, Gu Meng Meng grabbed onto the tree branch below her but tightly, fixing herself on the branch to prevent herself from losing control and jumping down, ruining her son's training. Not long after, Gu Meng Meng heard the sound of wild beasts running. She turned her head sharply and indeed saw Jiaoyu's shadow. He was in beast form now and his fur color was not as black as Elvis's. It was the color of the coffee and he looked more like a husky. No matter how much it resembled a pet dog, Gu Meng Meng deeply felt the difference between a dog and a wolf. Chapter 682. Running into the middle of the encirclement, Jiaoyu suddenly braked and turned around, baring his fangs at the pursuing jackal. The jackal did not mind. After all, he was more than twice the size of Jiaoyu. Some saliva dripped down from the corners of his mouth. He had clearly decided that Jiaoyu was just a delicious piece of meat on his plate. But when Kanwu and Hada slowly walked out of the thicket and surrounded him in a triangular formation, the expression on the jackal's face began to change. It only took a few breaths' time for him to go from a sure win to a panicky one. The jackal started to circle around the encirclement, looking for an opening to break through, but the three young ones were clearly in sync, controlling the distance between them perfectly, without a single flaw. And it was also at this time that the jackal realized that his companions were no longer chasing after Jiaoyu with him. Although the three young ones were only half-orcs, an orc with his full aura could still win against a wild beast, not to mention 3 against 1? That was simply the level of crushing and hanging him up. She did not know if it was because of the good chemistry between twin brothers, or because of the effects of Burke's recent training. The three young ones' attacks were flawless. This was not because Gu Meng Meng was blinded by motherly love. She had Snake's memories in her body, and although she had only casually killed a few stray beasts during the stray beast attack, there was still a lot of battle information in Snake's memories, so her evaluation was very high. Although young, the three young ones were already showing their brilliance. Gu Meng Meng focused all her attention on the three young ones fighting with the jackal, and could not help but cheer a few times. But to not disturb her son's performance, Gu Meng Meng resisted the urge. If everything went according to plan, the three young ones should be able to end the battle quickly. But perhaps because his mother was watching, Kanwa's performance was a little too aggressive. He was too eager to prove his own growth, so under the circumstances where the time was not ripe, he rashly launched the final attack on the jackal. The jackal was on the brink of death, and in a situation where it would die if it did not fight, it was much more ferocious than usual. Yuan Wu's attack didn't bite the jackal's throat. Instead, the jackal dodged half a step and bit its muscular chest. He realized that he had made a mistake in his attack and wanted to immediately let go and retreat, but the jackal did not give him the chance and bit the back of Kanwa's neck. Gu Meng Meng panicked. If the jackal retracted its teeth, Kanwa's spine would be bitten off and he would die immediately. Just as she was about to jump down to save her son, Borg held her back and stopped her. Before Gu Meng Meng could even glare at Burke, she saw Jiaoyu pouncing behind the jackal and biting the root of his tail. With a snap, the tail was forcefully ripped off. The jackal howled in pain and heaved a sigh of relief. Kanwu took the opportunity to retreat. Shaking his head, he adjusted his rhythm and pounced on the jackal again. He gave up on the throat and pounced on the jackal's back, biting his spine. Gu Meng Meng heaved a sigh of relief. Did this lad learn from Elvis or Leah? An eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. Give him a taste of his own medicine. Chapter 683. In the end, Kanwa still managed to bite off the jackal's neck. With his mouth full of blood, he tossed the jackal's head aside and transformed into a human. He looked like a clean 6-year-old boy. Looking up, he stared at Gu Meng Meng with his azure blue eyes, as if he was a child who had scored 80 marks in a test and did not know whether his mother would praise or criticize him. He was at a loss and at a loss. Burke jumped down from the tree and opened his arms to catch Gu Meng Meng. Elvis had instructed him not to let Gu Meng Meng jump down from a high place. Although she had Snake's regenerative abilities and could recover by herself even if she fell, it did not mean that she would not be in pain. Gu Meng Meng was heartless and only had her son in her eyes. So she jumped down without hesitation. Burke caught hold of Gu Meng Meng steadily. He was in a daze when he saw her jump down from the tree. Her trust in him made him feel very happy. Even though she did not even look at him out of the corner of her eyes, he still felt very satisfied. What Burke did not know was that Gu Meng Meng was the legendary boldness of a skilled person. She did not believe that Burke would catch her, but she knew that nothing would happen to her if she jumped down. Flipping down from Burke's body, Gu Meng Meng hugged Kanwu and gave him a big kiss. Kanwu, come, open your mouth and let Mummy see your teeth. Kanwu did not understand and obediently opened his mouth wide for Mummy to check. Gu Meng Meng poked at his clean white teeth with her finger to ensure that none of them were loose. Then, she pushed Kanwu's chin closed and kissed him on his round little face. Our Kanwu's teeth are really good. It's effortless for him to bite through such hard things. Mummy's teeth are not as good as yours. I can only eat softer things. Kanwu reached out his little hand and imitated Gu Meng Meng to touch his own teeth. Then, he stared intently at Gu Meng Meng's smiling face. After hesitating for a moment, he reached out his meaty little hand to poke Gu Meng Meng's front teeth. Mummy's teeth are also very good. They are neat and beautiful. You are a female and do not need to bite hard things. I will leave the best parts of my prey for Mummy to eat. Gu Meng Meng was so touched that she wanted to cry. She hugged Kanwu and kissed him left and right. Even when her son's face turned red, she still refused to let go. Jiaoyu came forward and raised his little face to ask, Mummy, was my performance not great? Why do you only praise Wu? Gu Meng Meng pulled Jiaoyu into her arms and planted a few kisses on his face. How is it not great? You don't even know how excited and nervous I was when I saw you lure that jackal over by yourself. My eyes automatically gave you a 50-cent special effect. Jiaoyu asked, what 50-cent special effect? Gu Meng Meng thought for a while and said, it's like using a kitchen knife to chop an electric wire, with sparks and lightning along the way. He's so handsome. Hada carried Qixuan back into his arms and walked in front of Gu Meng Meng in a mature manner. He poked Kanwa's little head and said, your performance today was not perfect. I hope you won't make such a mistake again in the future. Gu Meng Meng was taken aback. Was the post-battle summary already? Ha! Shouldn't Borg be the one doing this? What? Was Hada the combat class representative? Chapter 684. Hada did not continue to scold Kanwu. He hugged Qixuan with one hand and patted Kanwu's shoulder with the other. I believe you. With that, Hada walked to Gu Meng Meng and handed Qixuan over to her. Then, he and Jiaoyu carried the jackal towards the water source, probably to clean up their prey. Kanwu walked up to Borg, raised his head and said, Master, let's go as well. The smell of blood here is too strong. It will attract other wild beasts. Besides, Mom doesn't like the smell of blood. Burke nodded, then looked at Gu Meng Meng. Gu Meng Meng was taken aback. She then understood that Burke wanted her to decide where to go next. The status of the female was very high. As long as the female was around, the males didn't even have the right to decide where to eat. Gu Meng Meng placed her hand on Kanwa's shoulder and pulled her son back into her arms. Let's go there. I saw a patch of grass on the way here. It's suitable for a picnic. Burke smiled and nodded, following behind Gu Meng Meng quietly. He felt a kind of blissful trance, just like the colorful bubbles in the summer, so beautiful that it was unreal. He didn't even dare to speak, fearing that the bubble would burst if he did. The everlasting green grass was tender, making people feel relaxed and happy. Gu Meng Meng stretched lazily before sitting on the ground. Kanwa stayed by Gu Meng Meng's side the entire time, his azure blue eyes looking at Gu Meng Meng from time to time. Thinking about how Gu Meng Meng praised him just now, he could not help but feel very happy and satisfied. Burke sat an arm's length away from Gu Meng Meng. He glanced sideways at Gu Meng Meng and her son getting along so easily and happily. His gaze was gentle. He didn't know that females could be like this. When Hada and Jiaoyu returned, they had a jackal's hide and many pieces of meat that were not neatly cut. Gu Meng Meng smiled and opened her arms to welcome her two sons back. Jiaoyu pounced into Gu Meng Meng's arms and looked at her with his deep amber eyes. Mummy, look, this is the beast skin that Hada and I tanned. Gu Meng Meng took over the beast skin and unfolded it to take a look. It was basically unusable. But Gu Meng Meng still smiled gently and said, yeah, it's really not bad. I think it could be spread over the table as a tablecloth. Or hang it at the door as a curtain. What do you think? Jiaoyu shook his head and said, "No. I'm going to save it and put it on the bottom of Mom's bed during the winter." Making the bed is also possible, but why the lowest layer? Gu Mengmeng tilted her head and asked. Jiaoyu chuckled and said, "A jackal's skin is not the best and softest, it is uncomfortable when it sticks to the skin. That's why we have to put it on the lowest level to keep it warm. That way we'll be happy." Gu Mengmeng was extremely touched. She hugged her son in her arms and kissed him. Chapter 685. Gu Mengmeng and Burke brought the four little ones for a picnic on the grassland. Although there was only one jackal and it was not enough for the wolf pups to fill their stomachs, there was still an adult Burke. This bit of meat was too little for them, but it was hunted by their sons alone, so it was enough to show their sincerity. Burke started a fire and placed the meat the children had prepared on the fire to roast. The few of them got along well, chatting and laughing. In the distance, a black and a white shadow quietly watched the person over there, but they couldn't get any closer. Meng Meng must have known they were here, because she had already turned back to smile at them several times. With Burke's abilities, although they had purposely sealed off their beast pressure, Burke would still sense their aura if they got any closer. Elvis frowned, his gaze deep and cold. How long do you think Meng Meng will have to interact with Burke like this before Cole makes his move? Leah sighed and shook his head. It's hard to say. From afar, Burke delivered a piece of roasted meat to Gu Mengmeng. They were too far away and Gu Mengmeng could not hear what he said, but Gu Mengmeng gladly received the skewer and even smiled at Burke. Leah pinched the tree trunk with his hand and with a crack, he crushed a piece of the tree trunk, leaving a comminuted wound on the body of the tree. The jackal's meat is sour and hard. Mengmeng's stomach will feel uncomfortable if she eats it. Leah said and walked forward, intending to bring Gu Mengmeng back. Elvis held onto Lee's shoulder and pulled him back. This is Mengmeng's decision, we have to obey. Leah turned back and sneered. Aren't you afraid that Burke, who looks so much like UC Jean, will become the third male in our family? Elvis frowned. Looking at how gentle and quiet Gu Mengmeng was beside Burke, his chest felt like it was being blocked by cotton. He could not retract the murderous intent in his eyes, but he still nodded with much difficulty. If Mengmeng likes it, I can accept it. Leah flung Elvis's hand away and said coldly, You can, but I can't. Mengmeng already has the abilities of a beast king, and is no longer an ordinary female who needs many powerful partners to protect her. Therefore, I will not allow another person in our family to compete with me. Never. With that, Leah strode towards Gu Mengmeng. Elvis shot forward and blocked in front of Leah. With a cold face he said, Neither you nor I have the right to stop Mengmeng from mating with a male she likes. Just as you said, Mengmeng is the messenger of the beast deity. She has the right to get all the males she likes in this world. Leah raised his head and stared at Elvis coldly. Did you hear what Maya said this morning? Elvis frowned and did not reply, but that flash of darkness proved that Lee's guess was right. In the morning, when Burke brought Gu Mengmeng and the four little ones away, they happened to pass by Maya's temporary residence. She said to her partner, Burke is coincidentally a wolf beast too. From the looks of it, I thought he was Gu Mengmeng's partner and the father of the little wolves. Waving his tail, Leah said, Are you really willing to let him replace your position by Mengmeng's side? Elvis narrowed his eyes and gave off a dangerous aura. He gritted his teeth and said, He can't replace me. I am Xiaomeng's first partner. Digression. The first greeting in March, babies. Good morning. Meng, call me Daddy Leah. Burke stood at his original spot, not moving an inch. He quietly watched as Gu Mengmeng disappeared into the horizon, before slowly relaxing his tightly clenched fists. What was that person's purpose? Even Burke himself had no idea what was going on. He could feel that that person was not purely helping him pursue Gu Mengmeng. He must have an ulterior motive. If you really don't like him, I won't interact with Burke anymore. We'll think of another way to deal with Cole. Anyway, even if we let him off, he won't let us off. So, there will always be another way. Leah hooked Gu Mingming's chin and kissed her on the lips as a reward. Then he said gently, "Good girl." Chapter 688. After giving up on the plan of using Burke to lure Cole out, there was no need for the tribesmen to continue recuperating on the spot. Oriton and Ian arranged everything according to plan, and the next morning, everyone was ready to set off towards St. Nazaire under Gu Mengmeng's command. Burke would invite Gu Mengmeng to accompany the three Kanwa brothers to hunt with him every morning. But Gu Mengmeng never agreed. Every time, she would just reply with, "You guys go, I'm not going." She did not even have an excuse to avoid it. But even so, Burke still insisted on appearing before Gu Mengmeng every morning, telling her roughly where he would be training the Kanwa brothers that day, what kind of ferocious beasts they would encounter, and what kind of heroic performances the children might have. At the start, Gu Mengmeng rejected all of them. But to Gu Mengmeng, participating in the children's progress was not a small temptation. But every time she was almost convinced by Burke and wanted to tag along, Leah would suddenly jump out and pull Gu Mengmeng into his arms, before baring his fangs at Burke to threaten him. Sometimes, he would attack with his claws, and sometimes, he would whip Burke with his large tail. Burke was like a block of wood. He did not retaliate or get angry after being hit. Gu Mengmeng knew that this was a process all males had to go through when wooing a female. Before obtaining the female's approval to become a member of the family, a single male who approached a female's territory would naturally be treated as an intruder and chased away. There could only be three outcomes. Either the wooer was so strong that the original partner could not do anything to him, or the original partner was so strong that the wooer would be chased away or even killed, or the female would be touched and accept the wooer as her partner. Only the three aforementioned scenarios could end this conflict. Burke was a third-level beast like Leah. Although he was not at his peak condition and might not be Lee's match, he was not completely helpless. But he just stood there and let himself be beaten, so that he could put on a submissive attitude so that they could get along better after becoming a family. Gu Mengmeng sighed. It seemed like Burke was serious about her. With this understanding, whenever Burke came to invite her, Gu Mengmeng would just avoid him. In order to prevent Leah, who was like fire and water with Burke due to his recent jealousy, from accidentally killing Burke, Gu Mengmeng would pester Leah to hug her so that Elvis could reject Burke's invitation. The team with 18 females moved as slow as a snail. 5 days later, they finally arrived near St. Nazaire. "Tidy up and rest." Elvis carried Gu Mengmeng in his arms, raised his hand and gave his orders. These 4 simple words sounded like an imperial edict that couldn't be defied. Everyone could only submit to him. Burke walked over again. Chapter 689. The concept of a graduation ceremony. Gu Mengmeng was actually very tempted. The children had been training persistently every day. These few days, they did not even come back for dinner and ate their own prey with Burke. This made Gu Mengmeng very upset, as if her children had been snatched away. But she did not want to forcefully tie the children to her side. Their intelligence did not match their age. They had the ability to judge and know who they wanted to be with. Leah walked up and grabbed Burke's neck. His long fingernails grew out at a speed visible to the naked eye and pinched into the flesh on Burke's neck. Blood trickled down and dripped onto the ground along Burke's neck. "Get lost quietly before I kill you." Burke was not afraid. He looked at Gu Mengmeng calmly, completely disregarding Lee's threat. His attitude successfully infuriated Leah. Lee's fingers tightened around Burke's throat like an iron clamp, tightening inch by inch. Burke's face was flushed red and his eyes were bloodshot. But he still clenched his fists tightly, resisting his instincts to escape and retaliate. Escaping was equivalent to giving up. As for retaliating, even if Gu Mengmeng accepted him, she would never be able to get along well with Leah in the future. Gu Mengmeng liked Leah so much, he could not offend him. Gu Mengmeng hurriedly jumped down from Elvis's arms and crashed into Lee's. With her back facing Burke, she did not even spare him a glance. She looked up at Leah with her clear eyes and said, "I want a hug." Leah lowered his head and met Gu Mengmeng's coquettish look. His malevolent aura gradually dissipated and his hands slowly returned to his own, transforming into fox claws before reverting back to human hands. The blood stains on them were all gone and they were clean and spotless, as if they had never been stained with blood. Carrying Gu Mengmeng, he turned and left without even giving Burke a glance. After walking for a long distance, so far that even with Gu Mingming's hearing, she could not hear any news from her tribesmen. Leah then found a tree to lean against in satisfaction. He suckled Gu Mengmeng in his arms and slowly closed his eyes. Li's large tail was wrapped around Gu Mengmeng's waist. The side of her face was pressed against his chest while his chin rested gently on the top of her head. I feel like I'm losing more and more control over my emotions. Li's voice was filled with fatigue and a tinge of helplessness as he said, You are becoming more and more important to me every day. My tolerance towards other males who try to get close to you is getting lower and lower by the day. If this goes on, I really can't guarantee that I won't be able to hold back when Borg comes to invite you again. Gu Mengmeng also felt the recent changes in Leah. Although he no longer showed any aggressive expressions towards Elvis, she could always see Li's resentful look when Elvis hugged her. That was why she had been unwilling to accept 2 partners from the start. Not everyone could enjoy the happiness of having multiple partners. Gu Mengmeng knew that she had lost out to Leah and Elvis in the world of relationships. So even though she knew that Leah was not in a good mood recently, she could not criticize him or even abandon him like other females. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.